The stars looked peaceful from the observation deck of Defense Station Gamma. Captain Deho stood with his hands behind his back, watching the distant lights twinkle in the darkness. He had been stationed here for 3 years now, guarding the outer edge of human territory. 3 long years of watching and waiting, but peace was a lie. Deho knew this better than most. 2 weeks ago, the colony on Harvest Moon 7 went silent. No distress call. No warning, just silence. When the rescue ships arrived, they found nothing but empty buildings and scattered belongings. 3,000 people had simply vanished. The only clue was the strange markings left on the walls, symbols that belonged to the Vrath Empire. The Vrath were insectoids, massive creatures that stood twice as tall as humans. Their empire had been expanding for centuries, consuming worlds and resources without mercy. For the past 30 years, they had been testing humanity's borders, pushing a little further each time. And each time, humanity had asked them politely to stop. Deho's communicator buzzed. It was his second officer, Lieutenant Minho. "Sir, we're receiving another diplomatic transmission from Earth. Ambassador Mirai is addressing the Galactic Council again." Deho sighed. "Put it through to my quarters. I'll watch it there." He walked through the narrow corridors of the station, nodding to crew members as he passed. These were good people, all of them. They had families back on Earth, dreams of peaceful futures. They had signed up to defend humanity, but they had hoped they would never need to actually fight. In his quarters, Deho activated the holographic display. The image of Ambassador Mirai appeared, standing in the grand chamber of the Galactic Council. She was a small woman, but she carried herself with dignity. Her voice was calm and professional as she spoke. "Honored members of the Council, I come before you once again to request intervention. The Vrath Empire has violated the territorial agreements 15 times in the past year alone. Human colonies have been attacked. Our citizens have disappeared. We have shown patience. We have shown restraint. But this cannot continue." The camera shifted to show the Council members. There were 7 elder species represented. Civilizations that had existed for thousands of years before humanity even discovered fire. They sat on their elevated platforms looking down at Mirai with expressions that ranged from boredom to amusement. The Quarrel delegate, a being made of living crystal, spoke first. His voice echoed through the chamber. "Ambassador Mirai, your species is young. You do not understand the complexities of galactic politics. The Vrath are simply exploring. They mean no harm." "They mean no harm?" Mirai's voice remained steady, but Deho could hear the edge in it. 3,000 humans are missing. Entire colonies have been abandoned. How is this not harm? Another delegate laughed, a deep rumbling sound. "Perhaps your people left of their own accord. Perhaps they found your human governments too restrictive and sought freedom elsewhere." Several other delegates joined in the laughter. Mirai stood silently, waiting for them to finish. When they finally quieted, she spoke again. "We have presented evidence. We have shown you the data. We have asked for nothing but basic protection under galactic law. Is this too much to request?" The ancient Velthron matriarch, oldest of all the council members, waved a dismissive appendage. "Humanity has been part of this council for only 30 years. You are infants in the timeline of civilizations. You must learn patience. You must learn that violence is never the answer. Come back in another century when you have grown wiser." The transmission ended. Deho stood in his quarters, staring at the empty space where the hologram had been, his hands clenched into fists. On Earth, in a building that officially did not exist, Director Jiwan watched the same transmission. Her office was deep underground, protected by layers of security that would stop anything short of a nuclear strike. On her desk were reports that would terrify the Galactic Council if they knew they existed. Her assistant, Officer Hana, entered the room carrying a datapad. "Director, the latest projections are ready. If the Vrath continue their current pattern, they will reach the inner colonies within 6 months. Earth itself will be at risk within 2 years. Jiwan nodded slowly. She had expected this. "And our preparations?" "Ahead of schedule. Dr. Yunji reports that the Reapers are ready for deployment. We have manufacturing facilities operating in 37 hidden locations. The Vrath don't know they exist. Neither does the Council." "Good." Jiwan stood and walked to the window. It was not a real window, just a screen showing the surface above. The sun was setting over Seoul, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. How long have we been building these weapons, Hana? 28 years, Director. Since the first contact with hostile species. 28 years of smiling and being polite while we prepared for the worst. Do you think we're monsters for this? Hana considered the question carefully. I think we're survivors. I think we learned from our own history. Earth went through terrible wars before we united. We know what happens when you're not prepared to defend yourself. Ji-won turned back to face her assistant. The council thinks we're weak because we ask for peace. They think courtesy means we cannot fight. They're about to learn how wrong they are. That night, Fleet Admiral Soman called an emergency meeting of the Terran Defense Command. The top military leaders of humanity gathered in the secure conference room. Holographic displays showed the current positions of Wrath forces, red markers indicating their ships spreading like a disease through human space. The politicians have failed, Admiral Soman said bluntly. Ambassador Mireille has done everything possible through diplomatic channels. The Council will not help us. They view us as children throwing tantrums. We are alone in this. Commander Hayek, who led the Terran Fleet's 1st Division, spoke up. What are our orders, Admiral? We send one final message, one last warning. We give the Wrath every opportunity to stop their aggression, and if they don't, she paused, looking at each officer in turn. If they don't, we show them why humanity has been so patient all these years. Major Taeyang, the youngest officer present, asked the question everyone was thinking. Are we really going to use the Reapers? Admiral Soman's expression was grim. Pray that we don't have to. But if the Wrath force our hand, then yes. We will use every weapon at our disposal. We will do whatever is necessary to protect our people. The meeting ended in silence. Each officer left knowing that humanity stood at a crossroads. For 30 years they had chosen the path of peace, of diplomacy, of courtesy. They had endured mockery from elder species. They had watched their people disappear. They had swallowed their pride and their anger, but there was a limit to courtesy. There was a point beyond which patience became foolishness. Back on Defense Station Gamma, Captain Daeho received new orders. His station, along with every other military installation in human space, was to go to maximum alert. All personnel were recalled from leave. All weapon systems were to be checked and prepared. Daeho gathered his crew in the main briefing room. He looked at their young faces. These men and women who had trusted humanity's leaders to keep them safe through diplomacy. Things are about to change, he told them. We're sending a final warning to the Wrath. After that, if they continue their attacks, we respond. Not with words. Not with diplomatic protests. We respond with everything we have. A young ensign raised her hand. Sir, are we going to war? Daeho thought about his answer carefully. We've been at war for 30 years. We just haven't been fighting back. That's about to end. The message went out the next day, broadcast on every frequency and every language. Commander Hyuk's face appeared on screens across the galaxy. His voice was calm, measured, and absolutely serious. This is humanity's final communication. Cease all hostile actions against Terran territories immediately. You have been warned. You have been asked. You have been given every opportunity for peace. This is your last chance. End your attacks or courtesy ends here. In the hive chambers of the Wrath flagship, the Queen listened to the message and laughed. The Wrath Queen was ancient even by her species' standards. She had lived for 3 centuries and had seen the rise and fall of dozens of lesser civilizations. The humans were just another weak species that would eventually bow before the Wrath Empire or be consumed by it. She watched the human commander's message on her display screen, her mandibles clicking in amusement. Around her, the other members of her war council buzzed and chittered their own laughter. These humans were so dramatic, so desperate, they thought words would save them. Ignore the message, the Queen ordered. Proceed with the assault on their Mars colony. If they truly had weapons capable of stopping us, they would have used them by now. This is nothing but empty threats from a dying species. The Wrath Armada moved forward. 1,000 ships, the largest force the Empire had assembled in decades. They were heading directly for the Sol system, toward the heart of human civilization. The Queen wanted to make an example of Earth itself. She wanted the galaxy to see what happened to species that refused to submit. On Mars, evacuation alarms rang through the domed cities. Millions of people rushed to transport ships carrying whatever possessions they could grab. Children cried. Parents tried to stay calm. Everyone knew the Wrath were coming. and everyone had heard the stories of what happened to colonies that the Vrath visited. In the military command center beneath the surface of Mars, General Wu Jin coordinated the evacuation efforts. He was an old soldier who had served in the Terran Defense Force since its formation. He had always believed in solving problems through negotiation. But watching the civilian transports launch one after another, he felt something cold settle in his stomach. His communication officer called out, "Sir, we're receiving orders from Earth. Admiral Salman wants to speak with you directly." The Admiral's face appeared on the main screen. She looked tired, but her eyes were sharp and focused. "General, what's the status of the evacuation? We'll have 70% of the civilian population off-world within 24 hours. But the Vrath fleet will be here in 18 hours. We're cutting it very close," Admiral Salman nodded. "I need you to buy us time. Keep evacuating civilians for as long as possible. When the Vrath fleet enters the asteroid belt, we'll handle them." "Handle them how?" Wu Jin asked. "Sir, there are 1,000 ships in that fleet. We have maybe 50 vessels in orbit around Mars. We can't win a conventional battle." "This won't be a conventional battle," the Admiral replied. "Trust me, General. Just get those people to safety." The transmission ended. Wu Jin stared at the blank screen, wondering what the Admiral had planned. Deep in space, far from any inhabited world, Dr. Yunji stood in a research facility that was built inside a hollowed-out asteroid. She had spent 20 years of her life in this place, designing weapons that she hoped would never be used. Around her, hundreds of scientists and engineers worked at their stations, making final preparations. The Reapers were stored in massive containment cylinders, each one holding billions of microscopic machines. They looked harmless, like containers of gray dust. But Yunji knew the truth. Each nanomachine was programmed with advanced artificial intelligence. Each one could replicate itself using any matter it encountered. Each one could break down molecular bonds and reduce solid objects to their basic atomic components. When she had first proposed the project, the Terran Council had been horrified. They had called it immoral, dangerous, potentially universe-ending. But Director Jiwan had convinced them. She had explained that humanity needed a deterrent, something so powerful that no alien species would dare attack them once they saw it in action. Now, watching her life's work prepare to activate, Yunji felt sick to her stomach. She thought about all the Vrath soldiers who would die. She thought about the destruction that was about to be unleashed. But she also thought about the human children being evacuated from Mars, terrified and crying. Sometimes, she told herself, monsters are necessary to fight other monsters. Her assistant, a young scientist named Kiwu, approached her. "Dr. Yunji, we're ready. All containment fields are stable. The Reapers are awaiting release command. How long until the Vrath reach the deployment zone?" 4 hours, Yunji nodded. "Then we wait. We give them 4 more hours to change their minds. 4 more hours to turn around and leave our space." But the Vrath did not turn around. On Earth, in the underground command center, Director Jiwan sat at her desk with her head in her hands. She had spent 3 decades preparing for this moment. But now that it was here, she felt the weight of it crushing down on her. She was about to authorize the use of a weapon that could theoretically consume entire planets if left unchecked. Yes, they had safeguards. Yes, they had designed the Reapers with recall functions and strict targeting parameters. But there was always a chance something could go wrong. Officer Hana entered quietly and placed a cup of tea on the desk. "You don't have to do this alone," Hana said gently. "Admiral Soman shares this responsibility. Commander Hyuk shares it. All of us who knew about the Reapers, we all carry this burden. But I'm the one who will give the final authorization," Jiwan replied. "I'm the one whose name will be in the history books. The woman who unleashed the Reapers. History will also remember that you gave them every chance to stop. 30 years of chances. That has to count for something." Jiwan looked up at her assistant. "Does it? Or will history just remember the destruction?" Before Hana could answer, the alarm sounded. The Vrath fleet had entered the asteroid belt. Admiral Soman stood in the fleet command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the Vrath ships moving through space. Her command staff worked quietly at their stations, their faces tense. Major Taeyang stood beside her, his hand resting near the authorization panel. "Status report," the Admiral ordered. "Vrath fleet is proceeding through the asteroid belt. Current formation suggests they're heading directly for Mars. No deviation in course. No response to our warning message. Admiral Soman closed her eyes for a moment. This was it. The point of no return. She opened her eyes and looked at Major Taiyang. Release the Reapers. Taiyang's hand moved to the panel. He entered the authorization codes, his fingers steady despite the magnitude of what he was doing. Release command sent. Reapers are active. In the research facility, Dr. Yunji watched as the containment cylinders opened. The gray dust poured out, spreading into space like smoke. Except it wasn't smoke. It was billions of nanomachines, each one smaller than a virus, each one capable of incredible destruction. The Reapers moved through space, invisible to the Vrath sensors. They were designed to appear as nothing more than cosmic dust, particles too small and too numerous to register as threats. The Vrath ships sailed right through the clouds of nanomachines, completely unaware that they had been infected. On the lead Vrath warship, the weapons officer noticed something odd. A small section of the hull plating seemed to be degrading. He reported it to his superior. But before anything could be done, the degradation spread. In seconds, entire sections of the hull simply vanished, breaking down into component atoms. The ship's atmosphere rushed out through the holes. Vrath soldiers scrambled for emergency suits, but the Reapers were already inside. They spread through the corridors, through the air systems, through everything. The ship's metal structure began to dissolve like sugar in water. The Vrath captain tried to send a distress signal, but the communication systems had already been consumed. Within 10 minutes, the massive warship had been reduced to nothing but scattered atoms drifting in space, and the Reapers moved on to the next ship. The Vrath Queen watched in horror as her fleet disappeared. Ship after ship simply came apart, disintegrating as if they were made of paper. She screamed orders, commanded her forces to retreat, but it was too late. The Reapers spread exponentially, each nanomachine using the matter from destroyed ships to create more of itself. In 6 hours, the Vrath Armada ceased to exist. Admiral Soman stood in the command center, watching the displays that showed empty space where the Vrath fleet had been. Around her, the command staff was silent. No one cheered. No one celebrated. They had just witnessed the complete destruction of 1,000 ships and all the soldiers aboard them. Admiral, Lieutenant Commander Bora said quietly, the Reapers are continuing along the Vrath trajectory. They're heading toward Vrath space. Admiral Soman had expected this. The Reapers were programmed to eliminate military threats to humanity. That meant tracking threats back to their source. Monitor their progress. Make sure they're only targeting military installations. If they begin to threaten civilian populations, initiate the recall immediately. Yes, Admiral. On Earth, Director Ji-Wan received reports of the Reapers' success. Within 12 hours, they had traced the Vrath fleet's path back to 3 military shipyards and destroyed them. Within 24 hours, every Vrath military installation within their territory had been consumed. Not damaged, not captured, simply erased from existence. The Vrath Empire's ability to wage war had been eliminated overnight. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. And the Galactic Council called an emergency session. Ambassador Mirai received the summons at 3 a.m. Earth time. She dressed carefully, putting on her formal diplomatic attire. Captain Kyung arrived to escort her to the transport ship that would take them to the council chambers. As they walked to the Galactic Council chambers had never been so full. Representatives from every major species in the galaxy crowded into the viewing galleries. Everyone wanted to witness this moment. The confrontation between humanity and the elder species that had ruled galactic politics for millennia. Ambassador Mirai walked to the center of the chamber floor, her footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Captain Kyung stood at attention behind her, his presence a quiet reminder that humanity was no longer asking for permission. Behind them, a full diplomatic security detail waited, all wearing the formal uniforms of the Terran Guard. The 7 elder species sat on their elevated platforms, looking down at Mirai. But something was different now. They were not lounging casually as they usually did. They sat upright, alert, watching her with expressions that could only be described as fear. The Quarrel delegate spoke first, his crystalline body pulsing with agitated light. Ambassador Mirai, the Council demands an explanation. Your species has committed an act of unprecedented aggression. The Vrath military has been completely destroyed. Thousands of soldiers are dead. This is genocide. Mirai stood calmly, her hands clasped in front of her. When she spoke, her voice was clear and steady. We eliminated military threats to human territories. The Vrath civilian population remains untouched. Their worlds are intact. Their cities are undamaged. But their capacity to wage war against us is gone. Forever. You cannot simply destroy another species' military, the Velthran matriarch said, her ancient voice trembling. There are laws. There are procedures. You should have brought your grievances to this council. Mireille's expression did not change, but her words carried an edge sharp enough to cut. I brought our grievances to this council 15 times. 15 times I stood in this chamber and asked for help. 15 times you laughed at us. You called us children. You told us to be patient. While we were being patient, 3,000 of our people vanished. Entire colonies were abandoned. Our citizens lived in terror. She paused, letting her words sink in. The council members shifted uncomfortably on their platforms. You asked why we did not use these weapons sooner? Mireille continued. Because we hoped we would not need to. Because we wanted to believe that diplomacy could work. Because we tried to be better than our violent history. We gave you 30 years to listen. You chose not to. What happened to the Vrath is the consequence of your failure as much as theirs. The chamber erupted in protests and arguments. Delegates from dozens of species shouted at once, some defending the council, others condemning humanity, still others calling for calm. The noise was deafening. Captain Kyung stepped forward and placed a small device on the floor. It activated with a pulsive sound that silenced everyone instantly. In the sudden quiet, he spoke. Humanity has more to say. You will listen. Intelligence Officer Hana entered the chamber carrying data pads and holographic projectors. She had been waiting outside, prepared for this moment. Now she began setting up displays around the chamber, showing information that made several council members gasp in shock. For 30 years, Hana explained, while humanity smiled and negotiated and begged for peace, we were also preparing. We built industrial complexes in dead systems, hidden from all sensors. We established research facilities in places where no one thought to look. We developed technologies that your species believed impossible. The displays showed images of massive construction facilities built into asteroids, manufacturing plants floating in deep space, research laboratories on remote moons. All of them had been operating in secret for decades, producing weapons and defensive systems beyond anything the galaxy had seen before. The Reapers are just one weapon in our arsenal, Hana continued. We have others, many others. We have ship designs that can outrun and outgun anything in this galaxy. We have defensive shields that can withstand attacks from entire fleets. We have strategic weapons capable of sterilizing planets from orbit if necessary. The Quarrel delegate's color shifted to a deep purple, indicating extreme distress. This is a violation of council law. New species are not permitted to develop advanced military technology without oversight. Then perhaps, Mireille said coldly, you should have provided protection instead of mockery. You forced us to rely on ourselves. This is the result. An ambassador from one of the younger species, a reptilian called Tavan, stood up from the gallery. But why keep it secret? Why not simply demonstrate your power and demand respect? Director Jiwon had been watching from a private viewing chamber. Now she entered the main floor, her presence commanding immediate attention. She was not officially part of the diplomatic delegation, but everyone in the galaxy had heard her name by now. She was the architect of humanity's shadow programs, the woman who had planned for 3 decades while others thought humans were weak. We kept it secret, Jiwon answered, because power openly displayed invites challenges. It creates arms races. It breeds paranoia and conflict. We did not want to be a threat to the galaxy. We simply wanted to ensure our own survival. She walked slowly around the chamber, making eye contact with each council member in turn. Our philosophy was simple: be courteous, be diplomatic, try every peaceful option, but always be prepared for the moment when courtesy fails. We hoped that moment would never come. The Vrath ensured that it did. The Velthran matriarch leaned forward on her platform. What do you want from us now? Do you seek to conquer? To subjugate? To take revenge for the years we dismissed you? Mireille smiled, but it was not a warm smile. We want exactly what we have always wanted. Respect, fair treatment, equal standing in this council. We want our borders recognized and protected under galactic law. We want trade agreements that are not designed to exploit us. We want to be treated as equals, not as children. And if the council does not agree to these terms? The Quarrel delegate asked. Captain Kyung answered that question. His voice was flat, emotionless, and absolutely terrifying because of it. Then humanity will withdraw from the Galactic Council. We will close our borders. We will establish our own sphere of influence, and any species that violates our territory will receive the same treatment as the Vrath. The threat hung in the air like a blade. Everyone understood what it meant. Humanity could now do whatever it wanted. The only question was whether they would choose to remain part of galactic civilization or become isolated and potentially hostile. The council members began arguing among themselves. Some wanted to expel humanity immediately, to brand them as dangerous and ban all contact. Others argued for accommodation, for giving humanity what they asked because the alternative was too frightening to consider. The debate raged for hours. During a recess, Mirai stood in a private chamber with her security detail. Captain Kyung brought her water and food, which she accepted gratefully. "Do you think they will agree?" Kyung asked. "They have no choice," Mirai replied. "They can either accept us as equals or become irrelevant. Either way, humanity's position in the galaxy has changed forever." Officer Hana joined them, sitting down with a heavy sigh. "I have been monitoring communications from other species. The reactions are mixed. Some are terrified of us now. Others are impressed. A few are actually pleased that someone finally stood up to the elder species." "And the Vrath?" Mirai asked. "What about them?" "Their civilian government has requested a meeting. They want to negotiate a formal peace treaty. They are also asking for humanitarian aid." Mirai considered this. "Aid after everything they did to us?" "They are broken," Hana explained. "Without their military, they are defenseless. Other species that the Vrath had conquered are already talking about revenge. The Vrath face potential extinction if someone does not help them." Captain Kyung snorted. "They deserve extinction." "Perhaps," Mirai agreed. "But is that who we want to be? Do we want to be known as the species that annihilates its enemies completely? Or do we want to be better than that?" The question hung in the air unanswered. When the council reconvened, the atmosphere had changed. The elder species had clearly reached some kind of consensus. The Velthron matriarch spoke for all of them. "The council has discussed humanity's requests. We agree to most of your terms. Your borders will be formally recognized. Trade agreements will be renegotiated on equal footing. You will have full voting rights in all council decisions." "Most of our terms?" Mirai asked. "What are you excluding?" The Quarrel delegate responded. "We cannot simply ignore what happened to the Vrath. There must be consequences. We propose that humanity agree to council oversight of your weapons programs. You must allow inspections of your military facilities. The galaxy has a right to know what other weapons you possess." Mirai laughed, a sharp sound that echoed through the chamber. "Oversight? Inspections? Now you want transparency? Where was this concern for 30 years while the Vrath terrorized our colonies?" "The situation has changed," the matriarch argued. "You have demonstrated capabilities that threaten the stability of the entire galaxy. Surely you understand our concern." Director Jiwon stepped forward again. "I understand your concern perfectly. You are afraid of us now. You realize that you misjudged us terribly. And you fear that we might seek revenge for those years of dismiss." 3 months had passed since the Vrath incident. The galaxy was still adjusting to the new reality, still coming to terms with what humanity had demonstrated. But change was happening faster than anyone had expected. Commander Jinwoo stood in the control center of Collection Station Alpha, monitoring the recall of the Reaper swarms. It was delicate work, requiring absolute precision. Every single nanomachine had to be accounted for and returned to containment. Even one left loose could theoretically replicate out of control. "Status report," he ordered. His second officer, Lieutenant Yuna, checked her displays. "We have successfully recalled 97% of all deployed Reapers. The remaining 3% are in transit from the former Vrath military zones. Estimated time to complete collection is 6 hours. Jinwoo nodded. "Good, and the containment facilities?" "All operating within normal parameters. Dr. Yunji has personally inspected each one. She says the storage systems are more than adequate." That was reassuring. Dr. Yunji had designed the Reapers, so if she was satisfied with the containment measures, then they were probably safe. Probably. Jinwoo still lost sleep worrying about what would happen if something went wrong. On his personal display, a newsfeed showed images from across the galaxy. The changes were visible everywhere. Species that had dismissed humanity for decades were now scrambling to establish trade agreements. Former allies of the Vrath were publicly apologizing for their previous positions. And everywhere, military forces were being recalled from near-human borders. No one wanted to be the next example. In the Vrath home system, a very different scene was playing out. Captain Deho had been reassigned from Defense Station Gamma to lead the humanitarian mission. He stood on the bridge of the medical ship Mercy, watching as transport vessels moved between his ship and the Vrath planet below. "How many refugees have we processed today?" he asked. His medical officer, Dr. Sunhee, consulted her data pad. 2,300. Mostly civilians who were displaced when their military installations were destroyed. They lost their homes when the bases disappeared. Deho felt a complicated mix of emotions about this. These were the same people who had supported the military that attacked human colonies. But they were also civilians, families with children, elderly individuals who had no say in their government's decisions. "Make sure they have adequate food and medical care," he ordered, "and find out if any of them have relatives in other Vrath settlements. We will transport them if possible." A young ensign approached him looking confused. "Sir, why are we helping them? After everything the Vrath did to us?" Deho understood the question. He had asked himself the same thing many times. Because this is who we are. We defended ourselves when necessary. We eliminated a military threat, but we are not executioners. We are not monsters. If we can help civilians who are suffering, then we help them. That is what separates us from the people who attack colonies. The ensign nodded slowly, processing this answer. On Earth, Admiral Summon attended a meeting with the new Terran Council. The old council had been dissolved after the Vrath incident, replaced with a government that better reflected humanity's changed position in the galaxy. The new representatives understood that courtesy did not mean weakness, that diplomacy worked best when backed by strength. "Admiral, the question before us today is simple," Council Leader Minwu said. "How many of the Reaper swarms do we maintain as active deterrents?" Admiral Summon had prepared her answer carefully. "I recommend keeping 10% of the total Reaper population in active status, distributed around our major colony worlds. The rest should remain in secure storage, ready to be deployed if needed but safely contained otherwise. That is still billions of nanomachines," another council member pointed out. "Is it not dangerous to keep so many active?" "It is a calculated risk," Soman admitted, "but it is also a visible deterrent. Any species considering hostile action against humanity will see those Reaper swarms orbiting our worlds. They will remember what happened to the Vrath. That memory will prevent wars before they start." The council debated for hours, but eventually they agreed to Soman's recommendation. The Reapers would remain, silent guardians watching over human space. A reminder, a promise. In the Galactic Council chambers, the first session under the new agreements was taking place. Ambassador Mirai sat at a proper seat now, not standing on the floor like a supplicant. Her position was equal to the elder species, her vote carrying the same weight as theirs. The first item on the agenda was trade regulations. The old system had been designed to benefit the elder species, with tariffs and restrictions that made it difficult for younger civilizations to compete. Now, under the new agreements, those regulations were being revised. The Quarrel delegate proposed a modification that would still favor his people slightly. It was subtle, buried in complex economic language, but Mirai caught it immediately. "I object to this proposal," she said calmly. "The intent of our new agreements was equal treatment. This modification creates an advantage for crystal-based imports, which primarily benefits the Quarrel. We agreed to fair terms. Let us honor that agreement." The Quarrel delegate's color shifted, indicating embarrassment. "You are correct, Ambassador. I withdraw the proposal." Around the chamber, other delegates watched this exchange with interest. The message was clear. Humanity would not be pushed around anymore. They would insist on fair treatment, and they had the power to enforce that insistence. After the session, the Velthron matriarch approached Mirai privately. The ancient being moved slowly, her multiple appendages clicking softly on the floor. "Ambassador, I owe you an apology. A personal one, not just the formal words I spoke months ago." Mirai studied the matriarch carefully. "Go on. I am 3,000 years old. I have seen civilizations rise and fall. When humanity arrived on the galactic stage, I saw you as I had seen dozens of other young species, eager, naive, not yet understanding the complexities of our universe. I dismissed your concerns because I thought you would learn patience with time." The matriarch paused, her expression sad. "I was wrong. You were not naive. You were being courteous. You were giving us chances to do the right thing. And we failed you. I failed you. The deaths of your colonists, the fear your people lived with, that is partially my responsibility. I am sorry. Mireille was quiet for a moment. An apology from one of the elder species was almost unprecedented. It showed how much things had truly changed. I accept your apology, matriarch. But words alone are not enough. Show me through your actions that this change is real. Support fair policies. Defend younger species when they face threats. Be the wise leader you claim to be. The matriarch bowed her head. I will try. In a military academy on Mars, a new class of officers was graduating. Lieutenant Heijin stood among them, young and proud in her fresh uniform. She had grown up during the years of Wrath aggression, had lived through the fear and uncertainty. Now she was entering a military that had proven its strength, that had earned the respect of the galaxy. The graduation speaker was Colonel Taeyang, promoted after his role in the Reaper deployment. He stood at the podium, looking at the young faces before him. You are entering service in a new era, he told them. Humanity is no longer seen as weak. We are no longer dismissed or mocked. But with that respect comes responsibility. You must be worthy of the power you will wield. You must understand the difference between strength and cruelty, between defense and aggression. He paused, his expression serious. I was there when we released the Reapers. I pushed the button that destroyed the Wrath fleet. That decision will stay with me for the rest of my life. Thousands died because of what we did. It was necessary, but it was not easy. It should never be easy. Heijin listened intently. This was what she wanted to understand. How to be strong without becoming like the enemies they had fought. Remember this, Taeyang continued. Our weapons exist to prevent war, not to wage it. We build these terrible tools so that we never have to use them again. The Reapers orbit our worlds as reminders, but we hope that reminder is enough. We hope we never again face a situation where courtesy fails. After the ceremony, Heijin spoke with some of her classmates. They were all excited about their assignments, eager to serve. But there was also an understanding among them. They were the generation that would inherit the peace that their parents had fought for. They had to maintain it. On a quiet moon in the outer territories, Director Jiwoo had retired. She lived in a small house with a garden, growing vegetables and flowers. The work was simple, peaceful, everything that her previous life had not been. Officer Hana visited her occasionally, bringing news from Earth. Today she sat in the garden, watching Jiwoo work the soil. Do you miss it? Hana asked. The planning, the secret projects, the weight of protecting humanity? Jiwoo continued planting seeds, her hands moving with practiced ease. Some days, but mostly I am grateful to be done with it. I carried terrible secrets for 3 decades. I authorized the creation of weapons that could destroy civilizations. That burden is heavy. Do you regret it? What we did? Jiwoo thought about this carefully. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that the galaxy forced us to that point. But I do not regret preparing for the worst, or using those preparations when our people were threatened. We gave everyone every chance to choose peace. The 5 years had passed since the message that changed everything. 5 years since humanity had said that courtesy was ending. But in those 5 years, something unexpected had happened. The galaxy had not descended into chaos or war. Instead, it had found a new kind of peace, built on respect rather than fear of the elder species. Lieutenant Heijin, now a full captain, stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel Discovery. Her mission was simple: map new star systems in unclaimed space, look for potential colony sites, make contact with any new species they encountered. It was peaceful work, the kind of assignment that would have been impossible in the years before the Wrath incident. Captain, we are approaching the Theta system, her navigator reported. Sensors show 3 potentially habitable planets. Take us in slowly, Heijin ordered. Standard survey protocols, and keep scanning for any signs of existing civilizations. The last thing we need is to accidentally intrude on someone's territory. This caution was new for humanity. In the old days, when they were seen as weak, other species had pushed into human space without permission. Now that humanity was respected, they were careful not to make the same mistakes. Power came with responsibility, and the new generation of human officers understood this. On the second planet, They detected artificial structures. Not cities, but something that looked like research outposts. Heijin authorized a closer look. "I am reading life signs," her science officer said. "The structures belong to the Vrath." Heijin felt her stomach tighten. The Vrath. Even after 5 years, the name still carried weight. "Are they military installations?" "Negative, Captain. They appear to be agricultural research stations, growing food, testing crops. There are maybe 30 individuals down there, all civilians." Heijin considered her options. She could simply leave, pretend she had not seen anything, or she could make contact, try to establish peaceful communication. She thought about what Captain Deho had told her during her training. Humanity could be strong without being cruel. Open a communication channel, she decided. Standard greeting, all languages. Let them know we come in peace. The response came quickly. A Vrath scientist appeared on the screen, his mandibles clicking nervously. He had probably never expected to see a human ship. "This is Research Outpost Delta. We mean no harm. We are simply trying to grow food for our people. Our military is gone. We have no weapons." "We know," Heijin said gently. "We are not here to threaten you. We are simply exploring this system. We did not know you had established settlements here." The Vrath scientist seemed to relax slightly. "Our people are scattered now. Without our military, we lost much of our territory. Other species took their revenge on us. We are trying to survive on the margins, on worlds no one else wants." Heijin felt an unexpected pang of sympathy. Yes, the Vrath had attacked human colonies. Yes, they had caused suffering and death. But these individuals on the screen were not soldiers. They were scientists trying to feed their people. "Do you need assistance?" she asked. "Medical supplies, equipment, anything like that?" The Vrath scientist's eyes widened in surprise. "You would help us? After what our empire did to your people?" "Your empire attacked us," Heijin corrected. "Not you personally. We do not believe in punishing civilians for the actions of their governments. If you need help, we will provide it." They spent the next 3 days at the Vrath research station. Heijin's crew shared technology for water purification and soil enrichment. The Vrath scientists shared their knowledge of local plant species. It was not friendship exactly, but it was a start. It was proof that old enemies did not have to remain enemies forever. When they departed, the lead Vrath scientist sent a final message. "Thank you, Captain. Your people have shown us more kindness than we deserved. We will remember this." On Earth, in a lecture hall at the University of Seoul, former director Jiwoo was giving a rare public talk. She had avoided the spotlight since her retirement, preferring the quiet of her garden. But the university had convinced her to speak to students studying galactic politics. The hall was packed. Students sat in every available space, eager to hear from the woman who had planned humanity's defense for 3 decades. Jiwoo stood at the podium looking at all the young faces. "You want to know about the Reapers?" she said bluntly. "Everyone always wants to know about the weapons, how we built them, why we kept them secret, whether we regret using them. Those are the dramatic questions." She paused, taking a sip of water. "But the more important question is, what did we learn? What should you, the next generation, take from our experience?" A student raised their hand. "Director, do you think humanity made the right choice? Using such a devastating weapon?" Jiwoo considered this carefully. "The right choice? I do not know. We made the necessary choice. We tried peace for 30 years. We exhausted every diplomatic option. When nothing else worked, we protected our people using the tools we had. Was it right? Ask the families of the colonists who disappeared. Ask them if they think we should have kept being polite while more people vanished." Another student spoke up. "But thousands of Vrath soldiers died. Does not that bother you?" "It bothers me every single day," Jiwoo replied honestly. "I see their faces in my dreams. I wonder about their families, their hopes, their futures that we erased. The burden of that decision is heavy, and it should be. The moment we stop feeling the weight of such choices is the moment we become the monsters we were fighting." She leaned forward on the podium. "Here is what I learned. Power without wisdom is dangerous, but so is wisdom without power. We were wise enough to try peace first, but we were also strong enough to defend ourselves when peace failed. You must maintain both. Be diplomatic, be courteous, try every peaceful solution, but also be prepared. Always be prepared. After the lecture, students gathered around her with questions. One young woman asked, "Do you think we will ever need the Reapers again?" "I hope not," Jiwoo answered. "The whole point of having such weapons is to never use them. They exist as a deterrent, a reminder. But hope is not a strategy. Someone must always be watching, always be ready, just in case." In the Galactic Council chambers, a historic vote was taking place. 3 new species were being admitted to full council membership, all of them younger civilizations that had previously been denied. The elder species had learned their lesson about dismissing younger races. Ambassador Mirai cast humanity's vote in favor of all 3 applicants. Around her, other delegates did the same. The vote was unanimous. The Veltron matriarch, now serving as council speaker, made the announcement official. "Welcome to the Galactic Council. May your voices be heard and your concerns be addressed with the respect they deserve." After the session, Mirai met with the new ambassadors. They were nervous, unsure of their place among civilizations that had existed for millennia. Mirai remembered feeling the same way 35 years ago. "Do not let them intimidate you," she advised. "Your species have just as much right to be here as anyone else. Speak your truth, defend your interests, and remember that courtesy is a strength, not a weakness, as long as you have the power to back it up." One of the new ambassadors, a young diplomat from a species called the Terrans, asked, "How did you do it? How did you get them to take you seriously?" Mirai smiled slightly. "We showed them that we were serious. We prepared for decades in secret. We gave them every chance to do the right thing. And when they failed, we demonstrated that there were consequences. Not immediately, not rashly, but decisively." She gestured around the chamber. "This council is better now because we forced it to change. But do not make the mistake of thinking change is permanent. Every generation must defend the progress of the previous one. You must be vigilant." On a space station orbiting Jupiter, Colonel Taiyang supervised the training of new Reaper containment specialists. These men and women would be responsible for maintaining the nanomachine swarms that orbited human worlds. It was critical work that required absolute precision. "Remember," Taeyang told the trainees, "these weapons are not toys. They are not symbols. They are functional tools of incredible destruction. Your job is to ensure they never activate accidentally. Every protocol must be followed exactly. Every safety measure must be maintained. One mistake could be catastrophic." A young trainee asked, "Sir, why do we keep them active at all? Would it not be safer to store them all inactive?" Taeyang understood the question. He had asked the same thing once. "The active swarms serve as a visible deterrent. They remind everyone, including ourselves, of what we are capable of. The moment we forget that, the moment we become complacent, that is when we become vulnerable again." He pulled up a holographic display showing the locations of all active Reaper swarms, small clouds orbiting Earth, Mars, the major colonies, silent guardians watching over humanity. These weapons prevented the last war. They are preventing the next one. That is worth the risk of maintaining them. In her retirement home on Luna, Admiral Soman sat in her study writing her memoirs. She wanted to leave a record of those critical days, the decisions that had shaped humanity's future. Future generations deserved to know the truth, all of it, including the doubts and fears. She wrote about the moment she gave the order to release the Reapers, how her hand had trembled,